So this is very much a sort of reunion of, first of all, you guys have recently done Hamlet, some of you, not all of you, but also, all of you are friends of this theatre and this producer in particular. So can I start with you and Ian and Sean about how this project came about, how you ended up in Windsor with these two plays?
I ended up by being in Windsor because Sean asked me, so he should answer that.
Well, Bill, this friend we're talking about, Bill Kenwright, asked me to be the artistic director here for a summer season for as many years as he could imprison me.
Yes.
So that's how I ended up here. And I've only been an artistic director once before, it was at the Haymarket, but the nice thing about that job and this job is I don't have to do any of the admin or running of the building or sit on boards or any of that. I just get to do plays. So having given it some thought, I said I'll do it if I could have a company, because I wanted to have a company to do 2 plays in the first season, not necessarily to do the same thing every year, but to start with that. And then the 2 plays I wanted to do were Hamlet and The Cherry Orchard. It took me about a year to persuade Ian to play Hamlet, and we did a reading of it, in fact, at his house, and I think after that he started to sniff around how he could find his way into it. And
it was an extraordinary event, wasn't it? I mean, the fact that, not just the age thing, which obviously is an issue, but just the fact that we were here just after coming out of the pandemic, doing a production to a full house in the end.
I thought Sean had come up with an idea, not the idea of having a company, a repertory company, as it were, perhaps the only one currently working in the United Kingdom, but against the prevailing mood of some people that you can only play a gay character if the actor himself or herself is gay, and that you have to have some actual connection with the character you're playing. Sean's answer to that is much more radical. Anyone can play anything.
Yeah.
Well, that was the declaration. I think Hamlet sort of proved that it was possible, because here is the Juliet, 1976 Stratford, to my Romeo, playing my father in Hamlet. And I'm now delighted to sort of settle back into normality and be playing her ancient retainer, which is what I always think of myself as, in The Cherry Orchard.
So quite a contrast.
But of course, that sort of casting, odd to some people, but to an audience not at all, apparently, is carried on in this production where Jenny is playing my master, Gaev, in The Cherry Orchard. No one in the audience seems to turn a hair, do they? They just seem to totally accept you.
Yeah, I think so.
Yes.
Miracles never cease, really.
Indeed, the last time you did this play, The Cherry Orchard, your Gaev was Edward Petherbridge.
That's right, Sheila Hancock. Yes, and the company I was helping to run with Edward at the National Theatre.
Yes.
We did Mike Alfred's production at the old Cottage Theatre. Yes.
Yeah.
Which rather reminds me of what Sean's got here, because the cameras can't see, but beyond, we're sitting on the edge of the stage, but on the stage there are 50 bleachers for audience, and I feel that in Hamlet, as in Cherry Orchard, that they are ghosts of the past, as it were. They're your ancestors watching to see.
You should put the critics on there.
Exactly.
Because you're like in the play when you're sat on, you're literally inside of it. And in this, even more than Hamlet.
I like having people on the stage. It's interesting. It's frightening at first, and then you think, actually it's not when you think, it's when you're playing it, is that whenever you turn from the majority of the people to the minority, everybody's involved. Yeah. They're not missing. You never feel you're doing something that's sort of,
turning your back on the house, because the house is everywhere.
Yes.
The only problem is if you're terribly curious like I am, you want to have a look at see, and you can't. You have to stay in the scene, otherwise you catch somebody's eye.
And it's interesting that sometimes they pick up tiny moments on stage and respond with laughter, which
they don't
the
see.
Audience there,
yes.
I wonder if they're a bit puzzled, but it's like playing 2 theatres at the same time, but I like it.
I love it.
And you're completely exposed, aren't you? I mean, as an actor.
Oh, yeah.
There's nowhere to hide.
There's always somebody looking at you.
Or Mark, look around and see how different this is from Hamlet, where we had all the architecture and the iron and the dark colours. Not only is that architecture gone, but the colour is so light.
Yes.
So these actors are really exposed.
Yeah.
But of course, I think it's a good way to do this play. I wouldn't have wanted to do Hamlet this way, but I think this is a good way to do this play without a huge, the concept was to have a set that would evolve, not a totally different set.
Yeah.
That's what we've done.
And with a young designer.
And a young designer,
who's
yes.
Lee Newby, who's really brilliant.
Yeah. Yes.
I've just seen he did the last 5 years in the West End. It's an amazing
that's a
job.
wonderful set, yeah. Yeah,
So-
I saw that.
So that's what's so wonderful about this company. And you also got lots of young actors as well as yourselves. There's a bunch of young actors.
You've got the elders here this morning.
I just want to say how amazing it is to be working in a company.
Yeah.
It's just as a feeling. It's a real family. And you can feel it off stage, of course, but on stage you feel it. We look after each other. We really do. And I think currently we're the only company in the United Kingdom,
Yeah.
which is terribly sad.
Because the National have abandoned rep at the moment. I mean, they're just doing straight runs, and the RSC have got straight runs. So yes, you are the only one.
And it's extraordinary to see somebody playing one part in one play and then being totally brilliant again in another play. And the versatility is just, but most of all, I love that feeling of family.
Yeah.
And it's extraordinarily effective in Chekhov because the characters all have such intertwining relationships and they all go back for so long. So that company feeling really, really pays enormous dividends.
Yeah.
In order to play, generally, in order to play anything at all, obviously, it's axiomatic. You have got to be aware of what other actors are doing and what other actors are thinking. But when you have a company as large as this, and you have an audience on three sides, then there are people in the bleachers who are going to pick up a glance or a thought that has been communicated between two actors but will not be seen by people here out the front. And that contributes to the overall atmosphere and the overall sense of a complete world.
Yeah.
And for me personally, I love this because I like to move around and put my character, if you like, and what I'm doing into as many corners as possible.
Yes.
And
Is that what you're doing?
that's what I'm doing, I know. And that's why I seem to be upstage of you such a lot. You know.
Not because you prefer upstage anyway.
No, not at all, no. Where is it?
You mentioned, Martin, that the interrelationships and the family feeling of this. I mean, you and Ian and Sean go back to the revival of Bent.
I was only 22. I'd never read a play like it. I mean, my experience was very limited at that point, but I thought a play that showed there's something of the history of gay people beyond America and England, which was the sort of only history I knew of, was just, completely enlightening. And for an actor of Ian's stature, he wasn't as famous then as he is now, of course, but he was so respected. To do it would be such a risk, but bring such a, kudos to the play, and of course it did. It was absolutely electrifying at the Royal Court. I mean, it was just before the Normal Heart, or just before, wasn't it?
It was before.
Before, long before. The history in one's mind. I just remember when I saw it, just weeping and weeping. It was so.
Before AIDS.
It was before AIDS, of
Yeah.
course it was. Yes, that's how far back we're going now. It's hard to remember that.
Just before, but yeah. An incredible play, and that's the play that brought you to London, and you ended up living here.
We did the play at the National when I did direct it. That's
Yes.
when I was, and then I made a film of it, and then I asked Martin to write this translation of Cherry Orchard for a production I was doing in America. So there's quite a lot. Of course, we've done other things. I did his play Gently Down the Stream at the Park Theatre 2 years ago.
Yes.
So there's a lot. But,
A lot of history.
Yeah.
but lovely.
With Ben Allen, who's in
With
that
Ben
film.
Allen, who plays Trofimov in this.
Horatio and Trofimov.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So again, more family connections.
Yes, yeah.
And yet we've brought in, and I know you did a very tiny role in Hamlet, barely seen, which was kind of amazing.
Ghost.
Yes.
Dad.
But obviously, it was fantastic to have you since you were in the company. You played this tiny role, and now you're playing this grand dame role of the theatre, one of the great female roles. Have you been longing to play this part?
I love Chekhov. I've done Chekhov before. I did The Three Sisters, and I have wanted to play this part, yes. But and it's wonderful to be doing it. It's very, very, very uplifting and extraordinarily pertinent at this time. It's a play about change, you know, and people coming to terms with change and the younger generation moving on. And I think that's very much, you know, our COVID situation. You know, people are having to confront change, and we are making change, and young people are just taking the baton and going on. In fact, I've spoken to a couple of university students and said, you know, how are you finding it? This huge change with, you know, doing things on Zoom and not meeting your tutors. They said it's fine actually, because we have never known anything else. And you think, yeah, that's fine. It's just going forward, and the play is like that, and that's why it's so pertinent today.
Yeah. It's such a bittersweet play, like all Chekhov. I mean, I always think Chekhov's the patron saint of depression. I mean, I think Uncle Vanya is the ultimate play about depression, really, because that's what's going on for me in his life. Ian, you recently played Uncle Vanya. You've done that play a few times.
Well, Sean directed the production we did again at the National Theatre with Tony Sher as Astrov.
Janet Motier, Leslie Sharp.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I've actually done 9 Chekhovs. You didn't know there were 9 Chekhovs. Well, some of the doubles, but
Yes.
Quite a few cherry orchards.
Yeah, a couple of cherry orchards. I would. The only one I've not done is Ivanov.
At the center is a woman who, it's true, when depressed, has tried to kill herself, but nonetheless has an incredibly uplifting and positive view of things. She embraces life. She embraces life to the detriment of the realities of life, which she can't deal with. But life itself, loving and living, she totally embraces.
And he was changing his style when he wrote. This is a different style to any of the other big plays, great plays of his, because he called it a comedy and Stanislavski called it a tragedy, and of course it is both. It contains both. But there's a lot. This is an entertaining play to watch.
Yeah.
For audiences, it's a lovely play to watch and enjoy, with quite a lot of comedy. Lovely comedy coming from characters.
I love it after the interval of the second act. And suddenly there's a party on stage, and the
dance.
whole company's dancing around and drinking and getting drunk in character, and the story goes on, and then spoiler. Cherry Orchard is sold to somebody, isn't it? Yeah, somebody buys it, and oh God! But the joy of that party is wonderful. Music.
But ask Robert, because Robert plays Piszczyk, which is a very strange. He's another aristocrat like Granovskaya and Gaev. He's on his uppers like them, but in a totally different way. And Chekhov gives you arias, doesn't he? And little turns, almost like vaudeville turns. But you've got to be real. Robert is both wonderfully real and very, very funny.
Thank you. Well, it's interesting the word vaudeville has come up in rehearsals constantly. That sense of performance against the traditionally thought of very naturalistic approach. These characters are fascinating because they move from one emotion to the next like that. There's none of that English British reserve about keeping a veneer over everything and keeping your feelings down. It's all left out in the ballroom or whatever room they are on the estate going for a walk. They experience every moment of life. And that is a musicality and a rhythm which is in the writing. But it is totally taken from, I presume, Russian character, Russian life, and the way they express themselves, dealing with tragedy, joy, and every aspect of life. And that's fascinating to get to grips with. And working on this has been great from that point of view, because Sean's encouraged it, and the company has encouraged that exploration into the characters and the text, and to take chances, and to express. There are no mistakes. I think you've said many, many times, everything's a journey. And that's been so free. I mean, Martin, myself, and Kaz have been parachuted in very happily and welcomed by this joyous company, as if we'd been with them for months. So it's from that point of view, it's been a fantastic experience and a rare one these days. You
I
know.
was going to say, as the newcomers to the company, I mean, obviously you're not new. You and Jenny work often together. I saw you both on the stage in Love Letters not so long ago. But new to this company, you're breaking into an ensemble, which is not easy necessarily.
It's easy if your ground of being is ensemble, and if that's where you come from. And well, that's where I come from, and that's what I love. And I couldn't put it any better than Jenny did, because you need this sense of mutual support. But you get that from Chekhov probably more than most authors apart from Shakespeare, because the gold, the diamond standard for actors, I think, is the subtext. And if you've got a subtext to work with, it's going to lead you on to what's next and what's next and what's next. And if you don't play the subtext in Chekhov, then you're lost, simply because, as Robert says, the characters move from sadness to joy to their own personal philosophy, sometimes within the same sentence. And that's not English, and it's extremely challenging for an actor, and Sean has made us do that, and it's exciting to be stretched and taken out of your comfort zone, and then to have it reflected back at you by your company, by your band of brothers and sisters.
Have you done Chekhov before?
Yes, I've done this play 3 times.
Have you?
Yes.
What did you play?
Well, at drama school I played Leparkin.
And you're still at it?
when I was 18, and then I played Yasha in Rep. And now, like 50 years later, I'm back at Leparkin.
Wonderful.
It's much like you returning to Hamlet. I mean, it's say the same 50-year difference.
Yeah.
I guess that's the thing about theatre. It's a circular activity. It's a circle of life.
Well, if you're allowed by people who say it doesn't matter how old, what colour, what sex you are.
Yeah.
So we come round into that circle, which is what we started with.
Yes.
And we waited, of course, as everyone else did. I'm not picking us out individually, but we waited and succeeded in going on to do it. Waited more than a year to do it all, which was quite, and staying in touch with each other and trying to keep the company together, and Bill being so supportive. I mean, that was quite a miracle that we've able to actually do 2 plays and make a film of Hamlet in the year that followed the pandemic.
Yeah.
And what's really moving is you get on Twitter people going, I haven't been out for 2 years and this is my first visit out and to the theatre. And other people saying, thank you for bringing this calibre of theatre to the Theatre Royal Windsor. And, it's just put this wonderful, wonderful theatre firmly back on an important map.
We haven't opened Cherry Orchard yet, but we're enjoying the previews and we're working on it every day, rehearsing it. But I think we're all can't believe we're plugged into this energy.
It's an encouragement to me that when I'm feeling pretty tired, I bump into a young member of the company who says exactly the same thing.
It's very encouraging.
But,
It's lying stretched out in the wings.
it's friends. I mean, you mentioned previous connections, but I feel I've been working with Martin all my life, but I haven't. We only met 2 months ago. Bob, less than that, but I feel we could have been a whole history, couldn't we, of plays we've done, which we haven't. The way you've just fitted in, but that's what's so wonderful about a company. That people come in and friendships are formed immediately, and deep ones. Doesn't mean say they're going to last, but whilst it's happening.
But that sums up theatre, doesn't
I
it?
know.
What we do. I've known Francesca longer than I've known Ian or Martin. I met Francesca when we were both very young,
And
we've done a play together
I don't
before
think
as well.
that's
which
true
is
of
lovely.
other disciplines, like an office,
No.
where there is a rivalry going on, or a cabinet, for goodness sake.
Yes, but that's
There's no
marvellous.
rivalry here. It's all supportive, and that's a good way to live your life, isn't it?
But
Be
that's
supportive.
the marvellous thing about working in the theatre is that, unlike films that gets chopped up, you see the whole tableau, and consequently, you actually need each other too. You have to work together and play together on the stage, and if things go awry, which periodically they do, you have friends there to support and, keep the ball in the air.
The thing I set out to do, to have this ensemble with these actors, has come to fruition on the Cherry Orchard. And that is a wonderful feeling for all of us. I feel we're a company.
We really are.
Yeah,
I
we
don't
really
want it to
are.
end.
And I think we all around this table grew up. Our education in theatre, once we left university or drama school, was in the repertory system. You know, and not looking back through rose-tinted glasses, because but you had that sense of company then, and be it 2 weekly or 3 weekly, over a season there'd be a company, and you know you'd move from sort of playing 12th night at night and rehearsing fur coat and no knickers by day, and it certainly had its challenges, but it was a great education. Just being thrown in at the deep end, part after part, some of which you were well cast in, others really very badly cast in because that was the necessity. But it doesn't exist anymore, you know, in that respect. So I always think that's a shame. But working with this company, and certainly the dare I say, the younger half of the company, I'm learning as much from them. You know, they won't be learning much from me, but I'm absolutely learning as much from them as I am from my esteemed colleagues around this beautifully set tea table.
You are indeed probably the last generation who will have experienced rep, let alone weekly rep.
Richard Harris tells a wonderful story about Frinton, where they put on his play 2 and 2 Make Sex, and they upset the council, and he arrived for the first night of his play and the poster had been changed to 2 and 2 Make Socks.
At least they didn't change it to 2 and 2 Make 6. That would have confused a lot of people. But Ian, this theatre, you came to this theatre fairly late because you only played it first when you did your fantastic one-man show.
Yeah.
Which was an amazing enterprise. For those of you who don't know, Ian toured a one-man retrospective of his career around 80 theatres in the UK and selflessly was used as fundraisers at each theatre.
A trust under Sean's guidance to help young producers and assured them that if they employed more than 6 actors in their play, and one of them for the first time ever, we would pay the costs of all the cast. So I hope that's going to be a stimulus. Because if there aren't the repertory companies, then we're very dependent on
Producers, we need producers. And
particularly
there are a
young
lot of
ones.
young producers trying to find their way. And of course the pandemic has hit them very, very badly. So I made an urgent plea to put a pot aside for young producers. And Ian added to that idea, because of course they'll often want to do a 2-hander or a 3-hander or 4-hander. And Ian said, well, why don't we make it part of the criteria? There's got to be at least 6 actors, which of course is great because producers more and more. I mean, look at this cast. Bill's taken on 15 actors for these 2 plays. It's a lot. It's not done outside of a national theatre. So we need our young producers. Yes, and as Ian says, if repertory is slipping away, we need them more than ever.
And talking of producers, I mean, you do have an absolutely remarkable producer at the helm of this production and in this theatre now. Bill Kenwright has taken charge of this theatre, as he's done with other theatres in the past, and completely reinvigorated it. It's inspiring, and of course you all have very long relationships with Bill. I'll come straight to you, Jenny.
I feel I should be the one that's not speaking since I have a personal interest, but I do want people to know that he's not in any way publicly funded. He uses his own money, money that he's invested in theatre all over the country and town and abroad, and then he puts it back into the business and creates jobs and livelihoods and magic for all of us in the business.
Yeah. And Sean, your relationship with Bill goes back to...
Well, Bill moved my production of Design for Living. I mean, God knows when that was.
Donmar Warehouse.
Donmar Warehouse,
1990,
Rachel Weisz.
1996, I think it
Poor
was.
Rhys Clive Owen. And then we moved to the Guildford. Bill moved it, yes. And I think we're sort of slightly similar, me and Bill, to he's Liverpool, I'm Swansea. We're both mavericks, we're both outsiders, and I think there was a little click, which never developed. And then some years later, I'd been assigned to direct The Exorcist with American producers on board, but I said I wanted to start it in this country, and Bill grabbed it, and so our relationship was reignited, as it were. That was in That was about 6-7 years ago now.
With
Jenny was
Jenny?
doing The Exorcist, yes. Well, I think we did it in 2016, certainly. So I think I started talking to Bill in about 2015.
I think you're right.
We did it at Birmingham, and then we came to the Phoenix, and then we did a tour starting in this theatre where I first met Anne-Marie and John, who run this theatre very wonderfully, and have also become friends. Another part of the family, the extended family of what we're all doing together. So yeah,
It's quite a jump from The Exorcist to The Cherry Orchard.
Via Hamlet.
Via Hamlet.
Yeah, that's theatre though, isn't it? That's so lovely. What's wonderful when you watch these actors is they've shed their Hamlet. You know, they're entirely the Cherry Orchard. It's amazing that. It's a fantasy, isn't it? It's play. We play, and they've shed those characters. And now they are these characters, and you sort of erase the memory of that. And if we were to do Hamlet again, then they'd go back into being Hamlet. It's rather magical and wonderful. That we're lucky. We're
Our
very lucky.
revels now are ended.
Just last night at the Young Vic, Cush Jumbo opened as Hamlet. The next Hamlet after yours. So there's a great continuum of different approaches to the play.
But I was just just briefly back to Bill, because I think I've known Bill longer than anyone here, because he and I worked together 50 years ago, and when he was an actor in Passion Flower Hotel, and that's where we first crossed paths, and he was hoofing it and puffing it too, laughing and singing, pooping at first, but singing and dancing then.
Where was that? Was that in London?
That was at, oh my God.
The Phoenix?
Yes, it was in London.
Oh, no, in the West End.
What's
the
that?
Prince of Wales.
The Prince of Wales, that's right, with Jane Birkin and Pauline Collins.
Wow.
And yes, we were all lined up there, and Bill and Nicky Henson, and it was really a good cast.
What a lineup. I guess that's the other thing. As we get older, the losses as well mount up. I mean, the people that are no longer with us. I mean, you just mentioned Nicky Hansen, for example.
Yes.
And I guess that's sort of a reflective thing about the Cherry Orchard. I mean, the character you're playing, Furs, he's about, spoiler alert, you end up locked up in the house. So it's very much a valedictory part. It's the part that, if Hamlet's a young man's play, Cherry Orchard Furs is the farewell role.
Finding it actually more difficult to play old than I did to play young.
I think there were two parts that Ian wouldn't have played. Hamlet and Fears. He would have said no to Fears probably, wouldn't he?
Yes.
So there were two parts he wouldn't have played, so I got him to play both. So I'm proud of that.
Yes. And then what luxury casting to get.
Well, I know, Francesca. She said, well, I don't want to be in Hamlet. Can't I just be in the Cherry Orchard? It's such a big part. I'll have to learn it. I'll have to be worried about it. I said, you've got to.
Rehearse it all day.
I know, she was
Do
panicked.
Hamlet.
So I said, play the ghost. And she said, sure, the ghost is Hamlet's father. We had these mad conversations.
I know, but that's the magic of storytelling. I mean, in the end, theatre is about storytelling. That's all it is. And gradually, I mean, I had no problem at all. I mean, maybe other people had problem with me, but I certainly didn't have at all.
I think, as Ian said, people accept.
And I just thought, go in, tell the story. That's all you have to. Laser beam, idea.
I don't suppose any child being read a bedtime story has said to its mother, you can't play Father Bear because you're the wrong gender and you're not Ursine enough. I mean, no.
Yeah.
I do hope that the energy we're creating does swish aside this, I don't know what the word is, but this determination from some quarters that only a particular person of that gender or sex or age will play that particular part, because it is, as you say, storytelling. And it must be allowed to be storytelling, and you can't limit things. You'll lose so much, I feel.
Yeah. And here we are. I mean, I remember watching when this was first announced, this production of Hamlet. I remember seeing the photographs of you guys in rehearsal, and we're rehearsing in masks and all of that. I mean, that was kind of. Because that was right at the early days of the
Hackney
pandemic.
Empire. We had those plastic visors on, and I got headaches. And I said, please, can I take my visor? He said, no. I said, well, I'm thinking all day long, and I got this visor around my...
And we had to be a certain distance from
We
each
had to
other
have
as
social
well.
distancing, yeah.
That was awful.
It was weird, and we didn't know. We just had to core the central principles of the company, and we were just doing table work, really, with Martin joined, because I wanted him to be there, although he had nothing to do with our Shakespeare's will, but as a member of the family and a wisdom, I wanted him to be part of it. And we just went day by day not knowing what was going to happen. But Bill kept saying, no, we're going into rehearsals in 8 weeks. We were saying, Bill's mad, he's crazy, we'll never get in rehearsals, there's a pandemic on. And Martin and I would meet outside on the street and have these like, and the company would be earwinging to see if they've got any information. We didn't. Bill, and on the last day at lunchtime, Bill admitted we couldn't go on, and I had to tell the company at lunch. It was quite painful. It was very painful.
There were tears.
There were tears. But, you know.
Here we are.
We knew we were part of a bigger thing happening in the world, and that was that. But here we are.
And that's the great thing. I mean, theatre is surviving, and we are here. We are proceeding and putting on great shows. I mean, that's the important thing.
And we haven't had to cancel a single one.
Oh, everybody touch the table.
Touch wood. We're regularly tested. I feel very healthy here.
It is extraordinary how shows in the West End have gone and we did 84 consecutive performances of Hamlet, and so far we've sallied forth into the Cherry Orchard, you know.
And I had my booster yesterday.
tempting
Get
fate.
vaccinated, people.
Yeah.
My booster. Martin had his booster today.
So, obviously, Sean, this is year one. Are you planning year two now?
Well, the Cherry Orchard should have closed 13 months ago.
Oh.
So I've been working on these 2 plays now for more than 2 years. And I've got to edit the film. I'm a little out of ideas right now. But Bill and I talk all the time, and yes, we'll have to. It'll be whatever happens next season will be extremely different from this. It'll be extremely different.
No one's mentioned the wonderful stage management team and the team at the theatre, because they've played such an important part as well. The theatre team have kept us safe, kept the audiences safe, and the stage management and the wardrobe and the makeup girls, they've been just amazing. They're part of the family as well, and they're as important. It's just the audiences don't see them.
I guess that's the extended family of theatre, and the people behind
But
the
it's
scenes.
also the family who've been knocked by the pandemic.
Yeah. I mean, my mask that I wear is freelancers make theatre work, and that's the thing, is that freelancers. Most actors are freelancers, most theatre practitioners are freelancers. The only people who are full timers are people who run buildings. So the freelancers have been really hit hard by this.
And the stage management and all the ancillary essential crew are most of them local. And you're reminded, I'm working for a local theatre. I'm not working just outside London, I'm working in Windsor. And although people have come from all over the world to see these plays, and how they manage it with travel restrictions, I don't know, but they do. Actually, what they come to see is a local British theatre.
Homemade show.
And that's exciting, and in a sentimental way, very rewarding.
Ian, your commitment to regional theatre has always been inspiring. I mean, where a lot of actors...
Because it inspired me as an audience.
And
If John Gielgud hadn't toured, I wouldn't have seen him play Hamlet at the Opera House Manchester, or Ivan Novello, or Laurence Olivier.
So it's repaying a debt.
It just seems to be the way it should be.
But Ian was making the most marvellous curtain speech on Hamlet to tell everybody that Cherry Orchard was coming, and it was an homage to a gentleman in a theatre that you grew up in, wasn't it?
Well, he used to give the same speech at the end of each play while they're doing weekly rep.
What you didn't tell us was that he's in Coronation Street.
Well, Arthur
Milton.
Leslie, he ended up,
Arthur
he was the
Leslie.
first man behind the bar in Coronation Street. Eventually, and became, famous, having slogged it out as the director and producer and star. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your kind consideration of our efforts this evening. Next week we've got something of a complete contrast. It'll be Agatha Christie's. I should be saying the role of Hercule Poirot. And then at the end he'd say, Godspeed, see you next week and a safe journey home. And then they'd all stand to attention, the cast, and they'd play the national anthem. And finding drum beats the national anthem, the curtain fell. And you just saw their feet running off.
I think every West End play I've done over the last 40 years or 50 years has gone around the country first.
Yeah.
And that's part of the process. Yes, it's wonderful to get this sense of taking it out there to everybody and getting different regional reactions to what you're doing. But it's also an opportunity to keep working it and working it and working it and working.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the best bit.
Yeah. And Bill's the king of touring.
The touring, he is.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, it wasn't for Bill, there wouldn't be much of a touring circuit out there.
Absolutely.
You mentioned Hercule Poirot. Of course, David Suchet is about to go out, following in your footsteps, I feel.
Good for him.
Doing a one-man show, life story show.
Oh, good.
And that's going to go around the country and come to the Pinter Theatre in January.
Excellent.
Oh, same theatre.
Same theatre, so I think you've set a trend.
Well, I can't recommend it strongly enough.
Francesca,
It's a
you're
bit lonely
next.
because you're on your own on stage, but then there's always the audience.
Yeah.
And that's what you're doing it for anyway.
Well, that's the other vital component which we haven't mentioned, is the fact that we look out at the end of the play, of course, and the audience are there, and they've come. And whatever fears they may have and whatever worries they may have about the things that we're going through, they want to be in the theatre and they want to see theatre. And you look at them and you go, oh.
And I've not heard such enthusiastic reception at the end of the play, other than on Broadway.
And they view the play with very fresh eyes, which is wonderful. Chekhov would be delighted,
Yeah.
absolutely delighted. They're not sitting out there watching their 50th production of The Cherry Orchard, and so it brings a wonderful sense of discovery.
So, any parting thoughts before we go? What has this experience taught you and brought you? The people who've already been in the season so far. Ian.
Oh, keep fit. We had a lot of stairs on the Hamlet set.
Yeah.
Fortunately, not on this one. But yes. Yes, you have to be fit as a theatre actor doing more than one play at a time.
What has this taught you, Jenny?
It's taught me that I want to be part of this family forever. I just love it.
And Francesca?
Well, I'm the same as Jenny. It's a very, very long time since I've been part of any company. In fact, since I was at the RSC with Ian. So that's how long ago. I mean, I've performed at the National, but not in a company.
Yeah.
And the difference in feeling is enormous of support and value. People value what you're doing, and you feed into each other. And that's just, it's wonderful. It makes you feel happy coming into the theatre in the evening. If you feel anxious, which we all do at some time or other, you think, it's cool, there's a backup, we're here together. It's not just me on my own.
Yeah. Unlike doing the one-man show thing that you mentioned. And lastly, you two, I mean, obviously new to this company so far, but I mean, presumably already this has been an amazing experience because...
That's putting it mildly, really. It's been an extraordinary experience. And I know as a profession we're very enthusiastic about what we do. We have to be, but it really is. For me, it's like going back 40 years. And to get that opportunity now, you're never too old, too tired and too talented to actually learn something new. And that's what's happening. And it's a joyous experience. And I had a friend who brought her 17-year-old son last night, and he was absolutely awash. He just said, I can't believe it. It was just fantastic. I wanted to spend the evening watching playing Minecraft, he said, and I was dragged along. I didn't want to come up. And he was completely knocked out. That makes it all worthwhile.
There are moments in every artist's life where a light goes on, and mine came on very early, 50 odd years ago at drama school, when I realised what it was, or began to realise what it was about, and formulated a way of being within the theatre and of approaching a role. And things like play the specific, not the general, which sounds basic, but it's not often done. And you don't often get the chance to do that in the theatre nowadays. And there were certain ways that I wanted to work. And I arrived on the first day, and Sean gave his speech at the read-through, and he was one by one ticking off all of the things that I most believed in. And so it was back to the basics that I'd embraced, and it was that light going on again in my head and my heart after 50 odd years in the theatre. And so it just reinvigorated my commitment to this amazing art form that we're all part
He
of.
has led this family.
He has.
We owe him. He's been the most marvellous
And taught us.
director.
You know, it's coming up 58 years I've been doing the job. And I have a teacher and a director, which is pretty cool.
And that's also what keeps the likes of me coming back to the theatre again night after night. Most of you who know, those of you who know me know I'm a complete addict for this form. I can go to the theatre between 7 and 12 times a week, and it's not.
You're the one.
I'm the mad obsessed one, but I can't wait to see this. So thank you all very, very much for today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.